Unfortunately, in the last few years, because of the reduction of the size of forces in Europe, when I had my first assignment there as a second lieutenant, there were 260 or 290,000 American forces in Europe. When I commanded U.S. Army Europe, there were about 65,000. Today, there's just a little over 30,000. So from an American Army standpoint, from the U.S. Army, we have decreased the number of soldiers that get to experience that vivid environment that is Europe, stationed out of Germany. I think from my perspective, personally, I gained so much because it taught me as a soldier how to relate to other cultures, to broaden my view of the world, to see different peoples and different nations' points of view in terms of security and how we can collaborate and combine our efforts to move the planet forward. If you're a soldier and you're always stuck at Fort Hood or Fort Bliss or someplace like that and you don't get to see an outside environment, you don't get those kinds of perspectives that are so critically important to being a soldier diplomat, if you will, and to deal with alliances on a higher level. And for a soldier's perspective, in a national security environment, alliances are critical. We have to go back to the time when we were doing more work with our European allies and partners. Right now, unfortunately, the arguments for those who think they are informed boil down only to the cost of being in NATO. And that's unfortunate because there are so many things beyond the fiscal cost, the money cost that happen with a relationship. The sharing of challenges, the look at the global security environment, how we partner together not just on the continent, but in operations outside of the continent, which we've been doing for the last 3 decades with Germany and many other European nations. So I think it's critically important to have a full understanding of what the alliance is all about, what we bring to each other. And unfortunately, right now, that discussion is very narrow and it needs to be broadened. Because most Americans don't see the repercussions of a global environment, they may not understand the importance of global engagement and global relationships and shared security on a global footprint. Critically important to know what is going on, both from a engaging with regard to our values, with our freedoms, with our form of government, to always trying to bring the society further along, to help things grow in a very positive direction, to defend against the forces that are there in every country and in every society that are evil in nature and would always try to draw us backwards. And the fact that Germany is one of our greatest allies, what we do with them has repercussions in all environments throughout the world. They are an economic partner as well as a military partner. Diplomacy is critically important, and we share so many interesting information and security relationships with Germany. I don't think most Americans understand how all of that fits together and comes together. And certainly it's debated here in Washington, D.C. But when you get to the heartland of America, it doesn't seem as important. I think most Americans think all of Europe is Germany. And what became critically important to me as the commander of forces in Europe, and during the other times I served over there, was that Germany is really a base of the advancement of Europe writ large. Along with a few other countries, France, the UK. But Germany is the most important because the people are so industrious and so charismatic. They have great traditions. And the thing that I think is important to me is to understand that Germany is the heart of Europe. Very different from the rest of Europe. Certainly there are different fault lines, different languages, different dialects, but Germany is truly the heart of Europe. and can be a real leader in the center of that continent. And again, going back, I don't think most Americans understand that. I think when most Americans think about Germany, they think about the traditional images that many would think of, or they think from a past generation of, well, those were the individuals we fought in World War II, or that's who we celebrate when we commemorate D-Day. Well, that was a very long time ago. And the alliances that or the alliance that now exists between the United States and Germany is critically important. Well, it was my first assignment as a brand new second lieutenant back when there was still a divided Germany, a divided Europe. And many of the things I did there as a young leader were things that stayed with me throughout my entire career. The focus on the mission, the understanding of being part of an alliance of defending liberty, and then the ability to spend 12 years of my career in Europe and living and working in Germany and meeting German people at different levels was phenomenal. As a young major, when our forces in Europe were asked to go to Desert Storm in the early 90s, we were living within the German community, and we had neighbors that were always very friendly, but there was this one man who used to stand in his house on his balcony and watch me come in and out of work, and I always used to wave to him, and there was never a response. But after I came back from the desert, he came to the house and wanted to meet me, and it turned out he was a World War II veteran, and he wanted to just tell me that it was great that we had done the things that we had done. Then later in my career, meeting the mayors, the various burgomeisters of the cities, both in Grafenwehr specifically, and Heidelberg and Wiesbaden, when I was a more senior leader, and understanding the requirements they had in terms of serving the German people in their cities was very interesting, and we remain friends to this day with them, as well as some of the neighbors. We had a young shopkeeper and his wife who we knew in Lehrburg. We still have contact with. Our children were with them. But the thing that sticks out to me, even though I was assigned to Europe, to Germany for 12 years of my career, I only spent 9 years there. The other 3 years, my wife was there with our children by herself because I was deployed. And the one thing that I keep coming back to is how well the German people treated our families, my wife, my children specifically, and the way that there was a partnership and a friendship that we'll never forget. And I think from a soldier's perspective, having been a kid that grew up in the Midwest, and never had an understanding of international relations, seeing not only the German relationship grow and bud and continue to be there today as we remain in contact with some of our German neighbors and friends, seeing what they wanted their country to be and how it was such in line with our values and our beliefs.